So anyway, I'm working on that and I'm just going to plan. And I've been.
Thank you for those who are already online. We're gonna get technology and everything set up, so be patient with us. Those of you joining us remotely, just a few more minutes. We're gonna get the technology up and running here in just a second. Bear with us. We are online though. You're unmuted. Yes.
I don't know.
Okay, those of you who are joining us remotely, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Awesome, all right. Good deal. So the technology is technology. We're cooking with butter, grease, oil, sauce. We're saucy today. Hello, happy Wednesday. Welcome to the LWIA Regional Planning Development Session. It is 1:01, so I will go ahead and we'll kick it off. Yeah, we got some screens coming up. And if you give me just 1 second, my Zoom skills will kick back in. I'll be able to share this screen. And maybe I'll be able to get it into presentation mode for you to see. All right. So real quick, those of you who are here in person today. Oh, before I do that, Chris Stroll, because I know your name first and fastest. Can you say something so I can ensure that we can hear you guys just fine?
Hello, Jamie. It's very good to see you. I'm glad I was paying attention when you gave me something to do so that I didn't look like I was paying attention, but I wasn't.
I figured if it was the very first thing at the top of the meeting, the chances were I still had your attention. Now, 15 minutes in, I'm not going to call out on you because I know better. So from there, thank you all for joining us. Those of you who are here in person, there are refreshments up front. This is a bonus that those of you joining remotely do not get to partake in because you did not come to Effingham to join us in person. So feel free to grab a cookie, a drink, and look directly in the camera as you're chewing. That camera, there we go. Hi. All right, so this meeting is being recorded. Mostly just for posterity, but also to help with note taking. It will be posted on our YouTube channel, so it would be public, but I'm not going to direct random people to it. So just be mindful of what comes across your screen and your mics. If you are joining us remotely, keep yourself muted until you're ready to contribute to the discussion. At that time, you can contribute to discussion via chat or via unmuting yourself or raising your hand, whatever is your comfort level. Please be patient with me. Our chat is on a different screen than other stuff. So hello, Brenda Elder. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad to have some good economic development representation because I do have a couple of questions for economic development. All right. I'm still letting a couple people in the room. Looks like, okay. So with that, yay, let's kick off our next meeting. Focus on chapter 2 for the WIOA Regional and Local Plan for Economic Development Region 7, or otherwise known as LWIA 23. Debbie, I know you're taking notes, can you also try to keep an eye on the waiting room just in case I miss something?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I can keep those screens up at the same time, but yes, I will sure try.
Well, I'll try. Just those of you who are in here, if you see something pop up and I'm ignoring, overlooking it, bring it to my attention, please. All right, from there, today's purpose, we're gonna do a quick overview of what we've already gone over. So that's a brief overview of chapter 1. We'll talk a little bit about our chapter 3 vision goals and implementation strategies, but there's significant feedback that I do want from our partners. So that discussion will be high level and I'll tell you how you can give more thorough feedback. And then we'll get into chapter 2 where we'll spend the bulk of the time today. Now I have competition at 2 o'clock today. There is a webinar on the Paid Leave for All Act that I think several people in this group might want to tune into. So we have kind of 2 different things we could do here. I could speed through a lot of things so that we can all be done at 2 o'clock and then free to hop onto whatever webinar or next agenda item of your day you have. Or we can still shoot for finishing within an hour and a half, and just those of you who would like to participate in the webinar can just quietly exit and we'll catch you up later.
Jamie, I think this is important and I would like to do this as well as we can today. And if anyone needs to jump off at 2 o'clock, we completely understand, but I would like to spend the hour and a half going through chapters 2 and 3 on the regional plan to make sure we have good information.
Unless someone speaks up right now and says that's a horrible idea and we all need to be done at 2 o'clock, that's what I'm going with. So speak now or forever hold your peace.
I concur with Chris. I would state that do try to get, if there's input that you need, we're getting close to that 2 o'clock hour, you might ask that before some people start dropping off. But to continue on through the process.
All right, awesome. I like it. That's what we will do. And we will proceed on from here then. So just real quick, start way back at the beginning. If none of you have ever seen me before, I am Jamie Porta-Hijawi. I'm little on the screen, but I'm here. I'm the director for LWIA 23. And what that means is I am the director for the local workforce innovation board. And what that means is we further and advance the mission, the purpose of WIOA, W-I-O-A, for Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So it is important for me to let you all know that WIOA is a landmark legislation that is designed to strengthen and improve our nation's public workforce system and help get Americans, including youth and those with significant barriers to employment, into high quality jobs and careers, and help employers hire and retain skilled workers. That's a lot to say. You know, just imagine what it is to do all that stuff. It is a lot, and that's why you all are here, because you all are doing that stuff, right? We're all going for the same overarching goal of having a strong economy, both local and national and global economy. So everything that we do in our day-to-day operations affects that. So my job is just to get you all to the table so that we can continue to work together, align our strategies without duplicating our activities so that we can most efficiently support the local workforce system. So what does LWIA 23 mean? That's the local workforce innovation area. I use it 2 different ways: as a geographic region, which are those 13 counties you see on your screen there, Moultrie County over to Edgar, down to Lawrence, back over to Marion, and everything in between. But LWIA 23 is also used as the title for the entity that is the staff to the local workforce innovation board, our service provider CEFS, and just any partners that we want to include in that time of day. You're part of LWIA 23. We are one big happy family, right? Yes, we are. So who are those partners? That's our WIOA service provider SEFs. That's our adult education programs and the 3 community colleges in our LWIA, in our region. That's Illinois Department of Employment Security, Division of Rehabilitation Services, our economic development organizations, our career technical education providers, and our Perkins grant administrators, our local employers, our labor unions, our Department of Aging, our community services block grant, our TANF reps. You'll see a theme here. I just listed like everyone. We all have a stake in the workforce game. That is why you have been invited to give your input on the WIOA regional plan. So in chapter 1, what we did was a workforce analysis. We looked at demand data, we looked at projected growth data, we looked at a lot of data, and high level, we came back to our current 4-year WIOA plan for the region, focused on manufacturing, construction and building, healthcare, education, and transportation, distribution, and logistics sectors. We've come to the conclusion that unless there's some significant major projects coming in the next few years that are focused on some different industries, that we would stick with those because they are still either leading, growing, or so important to the local workforce that they impact the quality of life. We talked to you guys last week about some additional and in our kickoff meetings in December about some additional data on in-demand occupations, and I'm still gathering some of that data. So as I get it and get some questions answered, I'm going to keep it, upload it to our website, which is the place for all things regional plan resources, LWA23.net/regional-plan. I'll make sure you have links to that, so you don't have to remember, write it down real fast. But I'll upload that and get your guys' input on some of the workforce analysis as well, when I look at some more specific data that applies to our region specifically, and some of the guidance in the regional plan guide. So in chapter 1, I did realize that I neglected to get some input from our economic development organization before or at the kickoff meeting. So while I have you guys here today, I think we got a pretty decent representation from Econ Dev. I would like to hear your input. What are the broad economic development opportunities in the region within the context of workforce, education, and economic development plans? And what are the broad challenges in the region from that economic development perspective? What are you guys seeing?
I think we have the opportunity to upskill and train a large number of people because they may be undereducated. I also think that we have a challenge in doing that because the current climate of industry is so pressed for employees that they can't support allowing any other employees to go out to train. There's one.
Excellent, thank you.
One opportunity I see at the college is just the advantage of things like the PATH grant that's covering so much for our nursing students and kind of funneling them in to help fulfill that gap in the workforce for healthcare. Challenges continues to be having students that are equipped and prepared to start without having to do a lot of developmental or prerequisite classes, especially students that came through the pandemic and maybe didn't feel like they had as much rigorous preparation.
That is good to know. Even just expanding beyond that, I think there's other opportunities throughout the region from other partners that do focus on some specific workforce issues like manufacturing or clean jobs, clean energy jobs, healthcare. There's been teacher grants, I think, out so to get more students into elementary education positions. So lots of opportunities with other resources supporting workforce development through other partners. Excellent.
Jamie, I think in education, we have an opportunity to maybe step outside of some of our traditional mindsets. And Michael and I were just in a meeting this morning where we were talking about how do we not offer, or how do we offer classes but not in the same format that we have always done, where we open it up to more of a competency base. So I think that is an opportunity for education as we move forward in the future, and especially for community college.
But a challenge around that is funding. You know, we're funded for seat time versus competency-based education, so the system doesn't really support making those changes.
So what I'm hearing is that the challenge is that while we can make some decisions and changes at the local level, the maybe state or federal or whatever governing body level, those changes aren't happening as quickly.
Not as quickly, but I do know that there is movement, particularly on competency-based education.
Well, and everything's always reactive based off of need. And what information they're getting, especially if it's very data heavy and data is always delayed. And we're going to get a different story at the local level, having that those one-on-one interactions and having the opportunity to have, you know, a finger on the pulse of the environment. We've done a lot of membership outreach here recently, especially going into the new year, speaking towards broad economic development challenges, even beyond workforce analysis here. A lot of our employers are screaming housing, childcare, and then people. And when we get into the people discussion, we need you know, a labor force, need to recruit people, but we need them trained as well. I think funding definitely becomes a huge component of that, and then even the sometimes the eligibility criteria to be able to utilize the programs do become issues at times too. I think a big opportunity for the region is the investment the Lakeland College is making in the F&M Technology Center and the potential upcoming of the F&M Regional Career Academy as well. I think those are going to be huge. The continued integration of the expansion of the Center for Business and Industry and getting more folks familiar with that, and just partnering with Lakeland on customized programs is a huge opportunity for our local and area businesses.
Wonderful. It sounds like we have a lot of opportunities in our area. One thing that's not in this regional plan, but should come up in some additional discussion later, is how do we showcase and market those opportunities? Not only for those who are already here, but how to do that to draw attention and interest to the region as well.
Yeah, I think educational standpoint, that marketing goes hand in hand. I was talking with Tony earlier, just on the probably a challenge. And I believe a lot of employers are aware of this, but just they get caught up in day to day. There's always fires to put out. They're always looking on the horizon too. And sometimes just easier to do things. But if we have more of a education out there and let them know what is available, I think there'd be more participation as well.
Great goals to have or visions going forward. Wonderful. Any other thoughts on economic development opportunities or challenges? Remember, we're thinking all across the region, from Marion County over to the border, and then Moultrie County over to Edgar County, all of that in between.
I think the chat had something that file here from Linda.
Let's check out. Which screen does this mouse go to? Okay, so I'm going to, or Debbie or Tony, can one of you open the chat and do that? quick?
Yeah, it's from Brenda Elbert. Childcare is severely lacking in our county and nationally. Educating future childcare workers is imperative.
Excellent, yes. All right, thank you. So then let's move on to chapter 3. We're doing things out of order because I like to keep people on their toes, I guess. I don't know. So chapter 3, we talked about last week, in aligning our goals with those set by the state of Illinois. And Illinois had 3 goals. And I don't know if Leah's on the call today, but her input last week was extremely helpful in trying to help me see the best way to align goals that made sense for us with the overarching themes of goals that the state has put out. So what I did was took the information that we had talked about in our discussion, took some information from like our current plan, and then looked at Illinois' strategic activities to address each one of the goals that they set, and came up with 11 local goals. So that's a lot of goals. So there's definitely room to pare down, and there's definitely room to flesh out a bit more. So if we sit here and talk about each one of the goals, we will be here for probably like 11 months. So what I'm gonna do is we'll kind of go over each theme, the 3 themes of the goals, kind of talk about them at a high level discussion. But then I would really appreciate if you could take about 30 minutes of your time between today and Friday, hopefully. And there is a Survey Monkey questionnaire, a survey, where you can go through each of those goals and give input. There will be specific input requested. What do you think of this or that? Or what are you doing to do this or that? And then there's for each one, a general, just give any feedback, suggestions, whatever you got concerning this goal. And then I believe if I did it right, every single goal should have, is this a keep or delete kind of goal? Is this a priority goal? You definitely think we should keep it? Is this a kind of like, yeah, it's all right, but if there's something better and we have to start paring down, this is one to consider paring down. And then complete, this is trash, this is garbage. Jamie, why'd you do that? I see something in the chat, but I can't quite read it.
Adam said he took the survey.
Thank you. Yes, I know there were at least 3 people who did, and I appreciate that. I've not looked, I wanted to be surprised, so I've not looked at your responses. Adam, if you don't mind hollering out or typing in the chat, how terrible was it? It was super easy and you enjoyed every second of it, right?
Me, what I would say is there were some very good questions in there, and it did make me think about the regional plan and where we could move in the future. So I would tell anyone who's going to do it just to go to a quiet space for 30 to 45 minutes and do some real thinking, and they'll be able to answer the questions.
Awesome, I appreciate that. I will make sure you guys have the direct link, but also just if for recording, if you want to pause right now, those of you who are watching the recording, it's at surveymonkey.com/r/reg, R-E-G, plan, P-L-A-N, goals with an S, plural, G-O-A-L-S. But that link is also on the resource page on LWIA23.net, and I'll make sure that you have access to the link. And preferably, if you get something done Friday would be wonderful, but you know what, if you submit something over the weekend, that's what you want to do with your partner as a romantic activity together, that's acceptable too. I'll be taking submissions till Monday. So just, you want to do that, don't you? I know. I think your dog would have some really, a lot of fun talking about it. What did Adam say?
Barb.
So I bet you can tell how much fun my husband has with me on the weekend. So just high level, we won't spend a ton of time. We won't get dissertation. I'll try to stay out of the weeds, but high level, looking at Illinois' goal #1 is to develop a system of excellence in its approach to collaboration and customer service in the whole workforce system as a whole. So that is all of those partners we talked about, everyone who's serving individuals to make sure they get the skills and the training they need to get into the career pathway that they would like to be in. And then all of those of you who provide services to businesses to help them come to the area, grow, become more globally competitive. That whole system, all of us as a whole, how do we set an example of excellence? So the goal ideas that I've come up with for your review is goal #1. I guess I have to look right here where it's easy. Goal #1 is we will use a customer-centered approach to service delivery. And in the Survey Monkey, it does go into a little bit more detail on what that might look like to give you a better understanding. But really what that entails is us assessing what the customers think of the system and using their input to make sure that we're designing a process, a system, we're making them feel welcome, that they're able to use and navigate easily. Goal 2 is that the core partners, or also known as title partners, in LWIA 23 will advance diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. And that one is more about how are we going to look at who are we not serving, who's not taking advantage of our service, or who's not utilizing our service, who is not participating, and why that is. Trying to figure out what is it just a lack of awareness? Is it that it's not useful for them, or they don't see the use for them? They're not sure of the value. Trying to really find those root causes of We're doing a great job. Everything we do is equity-based and equity-focused. So now let's just go a step further to see how can we do that better? And how can we make sure more people are included and are able to benefit from the services that we all provide? Goal 3 is that we all partners enhance the coordination and collaboration. I'm going to be honest, I don't have my notes on that one, so I don't remember very well what details I had for that. I'll find them in a little bit. And then goal 4 is job seekers and employers have a broader awareness of the workforce development system in LWIA 23. Because I bet most of you on the call, if I said, what do you think of the workforce development system? You wouldn't be thinking about all the stuff I'm talking about right now, would you? We all get kind of stuck into what we do on a day-to-day. It's hard sometimes to think about the whole system as an entity and who all that includes. So much less just someone out in the public realizing that we're an entire system working together. And then goal 5, this is a lot of goals for this one thing, is to enhance local service through delivery through supporting development to frontline workers. So that is just making sure that all of those service individuals who are working with job seekers or employers are prepared to be able to offer the best experience and the best support to those individuals and businesses that they see. So, high level, how are you feeling about these goals? Is there one of those 5 that is your favorite? Is there one that you don't like? What are your thoughts just off the top? I talk too much, I know, but I'm giving you the chance to talk. Acceptable responses. I solemnly swear to look at this on the Survey Monkey and get real input on the details.
This is Adam. Can you hear me?
I can, Adam.
Yes.
Sorry for my comment before. That wasn't really meant for everybody, but I remember there was a lot of stuff on the goals. I remember reading through that. Honestly, I didn't expect to be there, and I did put a high priority on about half of them. You know, with regard to, well, honestly, it's hard to remember them all at this point, but there is, I don't know if you have some of the results of that or not yet, but I did put high priority on about half of them, and there's a lot more kind of brought up than I thought there would be, but good points, a lot of them.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's not just me being super excited and the workforce nerd. There is value to a lot of them.
Well, I like the idea that we're trying to figure out who we're missing a lot. Because I think that gets missed regularly by all of us. I mean, not just, service providers. As far as that, I really like that we're looking at that. And I also like that we're looking at the customer-centered approach and recognizing that the one-size-fits-all model is not going to work. That we would be treating people individually versus, into the system.
Just taking that more intentional approach. So I appreciate your input. Thank you.
I also think from a title perspective, as the Title II provider for LWA 23, I believe that the things that are the goals that are being listed are also things that we are hearing at the state level. It's not just about how we've always done things. It's about how do we meet a student where they're at? How do we meet them emotionally, mentally, physically at the location that they're at? How do we do that better than what we've been doing? It's not that what we're doing is wrong. It's that we're trying to look for ways to improve. So I think this also helps us be able to see ways that we can improve and talk with our partners about how we can work together and be able to improve our services and not duplicate services.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, I think advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. I did a survey already. That was my priority. I just feel that we need to do better. And including everybody, no matter what the beliefs are, I just think that should be a really high priority. Because, in Central Illinois, there's not a lot of diversity and not a lot of support for that. I really do think we need to have that high priority.
Awesome, thank you. What really inspires, I took these goals off of what the state was saying, so this isn't just me making stuff up. I wish I was that smart, but that one does resonate with me because I do see that we have the potential, especially when it comes to WIA Title I dollars, but all of the partners, I feel like we have the potential of serving so many more people. But we really rely on that word of mouth because word of mouth is priceless and it goes very far. But who are the people that you talk to? People who go to the same church as you, who live near you, who look like you, who've had similar experiences. So just taking it that step further to look beyond those inner circles that are maybe not quite as diverse if we're just relying on word of mouth, but going just a little step further in making sure that the message is spread far and wide.
The access piece is super important.
Yes.
To that goal also.
Yeah, because sometimes that is what makes someone feel excluded, is if it's not easily accessible for them. I don't feel welcome, so I'm not going to use this service or pursue this idea. Then that word of mouth travels far too, right? It's not just the good stuff, it's the bad stuff. Well, oh, I went there and I couldn't get inside of the door because it wasn't ADA compliant. Like that kind of stuff travels far as well. Further and faster sometimes. Negativity definitely travels fast. Yes, it does. When I worked food service, I used to have this memorized, but I think it was like for every one complaint that you get from a customer, there's 9 that were dissatisfied and didn't come to you. So for everyone, take that as 10 complaints, 10 things you've done wrong, 9 of which you don't even know about, but they've already decided to tell their friends or not come back.
Courtney put in the chat that goals 1, 3, 4 really stand out to me.
Awesome, thank you. That doesn't get you out of doing the survey for me. All right. I told myself I was gonna keep like tabs on time and everything. I don't know if I am, but let's keep moving for the sake of time. And to figure out what screen I'm looking at. So Illinois' goal 2 is that the Illinois Workforce Development System supports, informs, and enhances employers' talent strategies. So I pulled from Illinois' suggestions or what they're doing and kind of tweaked them a bit. For us, that could look like goal 6. We support, inform, and enhance the employer's talent strategies, and that's going to be through increasing like the talent pipeline management service that we have, really helping them to look at their talent strategies, assess what they are doing well versus what they need help with, and finding the best way to, whether it's services that already exist in the area or bringing new services to the area to support those employers, and recruiting in job postings, making sure that they are posting accurate job descriptions that get attention and get recruits into the doors. Then goal 7, the business service team will leverage their business services to provide more holistic support to employers. That one is very specific to our business service team, which quite a few of you on the here today are on. So if you're a member of the business service team, you are required to respond to that goal. And that's us really assessing what all do we currently offer, what more could we do, where can we beef up our services, and what are we getting back from employers? What is the input that they're giving us that they need? And really basing things based on that input from the horse's mouth. And then goal 8 is the workforce development system for LWIA 23 will build out tools and practices that can help employers adopt a culture that promotes equity and accessibility. So that, I feel like in the details in the survey, that was along the lines of looking what already exists out there as far as practices and tools, toolkits, resources to help employers look at their culture, because what we're seeing, at least in my experience with talking to businesses, is those employers who are not in just a survival mode, that they're actually thriving and, treading water, they're doing all right. Those are the ones that have a really person development focused culture. They are looking at their employees as human beings and what they can do to support them as individuals. And they're the ones that are making sure that each employee has what they need to be successful. So using that equity lens, really looking at accessibility, they're the ones that are networking or connecting with other resources like WIA Title I, like Title II resources to enhance the experience of the employee, which produces a better culture. So the employers out there that are just figuring this out or struggling a bit, we'd like to be able to have them ready to go toolkits, workshops, whatever that may be. So out of those 3 goals, high level, how are you feeling about them? Favorite one, least favorite one? Hate them all, love them all.
I like them all, but number 8 is probably my favorite.
Those are big goals.
That's a really big goal that we're gonna have to lean into our training providers to help with.
Yeah, I'm curious how you accomplish number 8.
I probably had a strategy when I wrote out the notes that I've left behind, so
There's lots of ways you can do it, which is not an easy thing to do to change any culture. Just lots of things.
but we can offer resources to help them do that. So it's a matter, I probably wrote something about assessing what resources are already out there, or asking what resources need to be developed, or I'm sure I have great ideas. Check out the survey. And that's kind of the spiral I got into while working on this, was I did get very detailed, started to get detailed of like, how do we measure that? And then kind of had to, all right, let me step back and get input from the group. So that is why this survey is a little bit more detailed and is so important to me, because I could very easily come up with a very detailed plan for all of us, but that's not fair. And that's not going to be a great plan. It might be detailed, but it's not going to be comprehensive. All right. So this one's good. 8's a favorite, but I definitely would like for you to take a look at the details and give me thoughts and feedback as you have a little time to marinate on it. All right, and then the third theme, these are our last 3 goals, goals 9, 10, 11, all fall under Illinois' goal 3, which is to develop a customer-centered and data-informed practice to improve the quality of the job seeker experience in pursuing fulfilling career pathways in a manner that is equitable and accessible. So in line with that theme, the LWIA goal 9 would be to educate and support job seekers regarding how to navigate the labor market. And while I think we already do that, any of the partners who offer any type of job coaching, career services, mentorship, you're already doing that. So it's more a matter of making sure that those frontline workers, I think, those coaches, those mentors, have all the tools they need to help the job seekers. In goal 10, the workforce system interacts with job seekers in the places where they live and visit. So this does kind of overlap with the earlier theme, but yes, what are we doing and how do we improve that? How do the job seekers feel? Do they feel like we're meeting them where they're at? What can we do better? How do we measure it? All those types of things are in those details. And then goal 11, the workforce development system will use that data-informed approach to reduce barriers to services for job seekers who have historically faced many barriers to accessing services. So what are we doing to make it easier, really, especially those who already have had a hard enough time? What are we doing to just streamline it as much as possible, make it as accessible as possible? I go back to, I don't know if you all have seen it, probably at least some of you have, that image of the three kids standing behind the fence at the baseball game. And when they're all on level ground, but one of them's really tall, has no problem seeing over, one's really short, can't see, and one's just eye level with the top of the fence, who's having a hard time. You give them all the same size box, you don't really solve the problem, maybe for one guy, the middle guy. If you give them the size box that they need, then yeah, they can all see over the fence, they're having a great time. But that really short guy, we don't want him to have to climb up all those boxes. So what if we gave him an iPad so that he could see the big screen better right there in his hand? Or what if we just remove that fence? What are we doing to make it not just accessible, but bring justice to the system as well?
I have a question on goal 11.
Yeah.
So I understand and agree that we need to reduce the barriers. Have we identified what those barriers are?
That's probably in the details of the goal, is that we do need to identify those barriers. That's what the data part is. What are those barriers and who are those people that historically already have barriers? So how do we get that data?
Oh, I'm not your data girl. Look, if you hand it to me, I can go to town, but I'm not the person to find it.
How do we get to the information?
I'm not the patient person that finds the data, unfortunately, but I mean, I feel, I like the goal, but I almost feel like the word identify needs to be in it. Because otherwise,
I think you're right. And I think I would love to see your input on that in the survey.
no, I already marked time in my calendar to do the survey.
I appreciate that.
I don't even want to hear that. But no, I'm gonna give you input, but I mean, I feel like that might need to be a little bit reworded.
I definitely agree. And I think when we assimilate all of the input and we look at it, that these goals are high level. Another part of chapter 2 is that, or chapter 3, sorry, is that we explicitly line out the plan to track and monitor progress. What are we measuring? How often are we going to look at it? And set a goal time of reaching those milestones. So I foresee this being, all of these goals, whichever ones we choose, being more specific, being measurable, being achievable, attainable goals, relevant, and then having that timeline as well.
This might be a bad question to ask because I did miss last week's meeting. Once you've set your goals, is there any flex in those? As far as if you get into the situation and you realize that this goal is unattainable or this goal is super easily attainable, you know, how is there any ability to change those throughout the process?
Yeah, so this regional plan, it is our plan. It is a 4-year plan. We will come together, I think every 2 years, so that midway point, we'll do some modifications and look at it and reassess. But it is a plan. If we were to follow this plan letter by letter for the next 4 years and did not address the natural changes, shifts, and evolutions in workforce in the area, we would be a detriment to ourselves. So it is a plan. It is flexible to whatever degree we need flexibility to be.
Sorry,
No, that is an excellent question.
Jamie, can I inquire on goal number 10?
Can you inquire on goal number 10?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Do you have specific inquiry?
Yep, for the workforce development system, interacting with job seekers in places where they live and visit. Are we talking about the communities that they live in? Are we talking about places that they frequently visit, or having a location, or is this in home? Maybe having more of a digital presence, more accessibility that, or just if you can elaborate a little more on what your initial thoughts were.
All the above. We are an expansive region, just as far as Title I goes, we're massive, and then I know each of our partners have their own regions that are pretty big and overlap, go into other LWIAs. So, but what we all have in common is that we're in rural Illinois.
Mhm.
We all have the same struggles with transportation, with broadband internet infrastructure. We serve the same populations or the same people who all live here. So all of the above. Are we looking at how we're digitally accessible, how we are physically accessible? Are we meeting them where they're at in their communities? Are we meeting them where they're at as far as I don't have internet, I would much rather do a paper application, or whatever the case may be. I think it is open for interpretation, and the more interpretations, the more fun it will be.
That's how I was interpreting it. Just wanted to know your further thoughts. Thank you.
Just so you know, my thoughts, like I said, I get into those rabbit holes like Alice in Wonderland, and I get into the weeds. So you ask my thoughts, it's all of it, all of the things. All right. Any other input, questions, concerns about goals 9, 10, 11? All right, awesome. Marinate, let the seeds soak up some water, start to sprout, and please complete the survey. So now let's get into chapter 2. This chapter is strategies for service integration. And I think there's a lot from our current plan that absolutely can go right into the new plan with rooms to expand upon. So if you prepared for today's meeting, you've read through what we currently have, you kind of have an idea. Maybe you've noted some things that we could add. So in chapter 2, we have strengths and weaknesses that are already listed in our current plan. I'm not going to read those all to you because I'm running out of steam. So let me give you guys 3 minutes, 2 minutes. For those of you who did not come prepared, I'm not going to call you out. You can pretend like you've been prepared. Just take 98 seconds to read through those strengths and weaknesses, and feel free to tell me what other strengths and weaknesses in service integration you see. There you go. Should I do it? Hold on. Fix it. Is that better for those of you who are in the room? If you happen to have the current plan in front of you, this is taken right from that little balanced teeter-totter image that says strengths and weaknesses in chapter 2. Just taken right from there. So whenever you're ready, you got input on what should be added, what maybe should be taken away. questions, feel free, just whenever.
I don't feel like the employees market is a weakness. I feel like that's a challenge.
I like it.
In the chat, Michael Beavers put weakness, a lack of cohesive plan between education, workforce, and local government. And he asked if I also see this, and I would agree, because I think there are barriers at the local level that we encounter, but I also think there's barriers outside of our influence that are sometimes hard to work through.
I view some of the weaknesses more threats than weaknesses. Traditionally looking at SWOT analysis, strengths and weaknesses would be internal control. External would be those opportunity threats that we may have influence to, but can't directly control. So like the overall population decreasing and aging would be a threat versus a weakness. Just I might be nitpicking a little bit. Yeah. And then the drug abuse continue to rise. That's a threat. And I don't think we have direct influence over that, but can directly control that. But we may have the opportunity to influence some of that by providing other opportunities that could reduce somebody's or help somebody to move away from those tendencies. But some of the weaknesses I see more threats than weaknesses, and may allow us to really narrow down on weaknesses for the region.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And that's why on the screen, before I expanded it, you could kind of see. I was gonna get your input on should we include an opportunities and challenges section too, because, you know, that good old MBA training. So it sounds like I have some agreement on that. We could definitely do that and separate it out.
If we're going to add some additional things for opportunities, should we address the increase of English as a second language learners within our populations, and then trying to, you know, in some of the cases, trying to incorporate them into our career bridge and things like that in the areas?
Absolutely, I like it.
Most certainly.
I can add to the weaknesses. I kind of reviewed it more like cons, I guess. From the unemployment side, I can tell you that work from home is something that people kind of see as they should be able to if they're capable of it now. Since the pandemic allowed for that, now people feel entitled to it and they're not willing to accept work or look for work that's not going to let them work from home. So that's one opinion to add there. The other thing that crossed my mind was kind of just like the stigma with student loan debt. For those that aren't lucky enough to qualify for some of the programs that we offer. Like I myself, I've been graduated for 10 years, I think, and I still personally owe $20,000 in student loan. And it's just something that you have to consider when you want to further your education, whether that's worth it or not. And then, you know, that ties right into skilled workers, skilled and educated workers.
Thank you, Casey. I definitely think that should be included.
That almost just ties in with the societal, for lack of a better term here, apathy towards education, towards higher education.
We're seeing a movement, I know at the national level, so I'm sure it's here to some degree that maybe I personally haven't witnessed quite yet, but I'm sure a lot of you have. A movement away from, do they have a bachelor's degree or master's degree or associate's degree, and more of what are their competencies? Can they pass this competency test, and then I can bring them in with this many years of experience and this many competencies checked off, and bypassing the whole idea of higher education in the traditional sense that it is. So that is definitely something that's impacting. workforce at the national level, certainly at the local level as well. Any other thoughts or ideas on service analysis? All right. So then we get to the next part, which is capacity analysis. And this one, there is a lot of tiny writing and there's a lot to read. Basically what we're looking for in capacity analysis is to look at the capacity of the partners to provide workforce development activities to address the education and skill need of the workforce, including individuals with barriers to employment. And analyzing the capacity of regional partners to provide activities to address the needs of employers. So there's a lot that we currently do in the region, and is that enough? Can we handle the demand? That's how I'm interpreting this. And in our current plan, the content of it is there in these blue boxes you see on your screen. So take a few seconds, skim over those real quick. I think something just popped up in the chat. Debbie, are you Courtney left? Okay. I knew we got competition. It's 2 o'clock. It's a very important webinar.
I don't know if this was already covered, but Gerald did say that he agreed that some weaknesses are not a weakness for LWIA, they are challenges for LWIA as well as employers.
Awesome. Thank you, Gerald. We got you. My understanding of it is yes, but I'm not familiar enough to confirm 100% or tell you the detailed differences and similarities between the two.
I've been there. It's been. I bet it's been. I just wasn't sure.
Do you feel like we have the capacity to do the training and provide the education that's needed to get job seekers the skills that employers need them to have right now? Or do we need to improve our capacity for training? Is that a loaded question?
Yes. That's a loaded question. I mean, that always comes down to money. And, you know, it used to come down to only money, but now it comes down to money, time.
Human capital.
Yeah.
I also think there's, from a college standpoint, there's also internal barriers. And I don't, maybe I shouldn't use the word barriers, but there's, when we look at capacity and we look at teaching models, modalities, there are things that we have to work through internally as a college to be able to offer that to people outside of the college. So that sometimes is a bit of a barrier.
So there's regulations and sometimes inefficient or longer bureaucratic processes that have to be gone through for change to happen. Because that is
Correct. And we have to get, we all have to be rowing in the same direction, for lack of any other way to put it. When we get into the boat, we all have to be rowing in the same direction instead of all rowing in different directions.
very true.
I agree with that.
It doesn't mean that we don't want to change. It just means it may take us a little bit on the backside in education to be able to make some of the changes and to have some of the capacity that would be needed to move through some of those. However, Michael's on the call with us today. Again, the meeting that we had this morning, we were talking about how to remove some of those barriers and what would an ideal model look like in manufacturing that we would be able to serve additional students, and what does that need to look like? So the discussions are being had. It just takes a little while to move the needle.
So there's already actions in play currently in the region that are addressing that capacity. So what about services to employers directly? Do you feel like we have enough services to support employers in being successful and growing in the region? How do you feel about our capacity for enticing new employers, new businesses to the region? That's a big one. That's okay. I would like for you to take a little bit of time and think about it. If you're anything like me, you think of really good things that you should have said, like when you're driving or when you're in the shower or doing something with your hands where you cannot type it out or write it down real fast, but try to mental note, sticky note it, and then feel free to get your thoughts, those epiphanies, those revelations to me, whatever manner you see fit. If it's stopping by my office, if it's that carrier pigeon that I got last week, whatever works for you. I am open. All right, so then there's some specific questions about supportive services in the area that in our current plan, we don't necessarily have a whole lot listed. So there's some specific questions around transportation, and we know about Dial-A-Ride, there we go. Sorry, I'm thinking of all these different acronyms. Dial-A-Ride, then SES has CIPT and Easy Tracks. What else as far as transportation do we have in the region? And when I Googled transportation, supported services transportation, something popped up that said human service transportation plans through the, I started to type it out. I guess I got lost in the midst of it, through the Federal Transportation Administration or something like that.
I know I had a student that used, I believe it was MTDL, Mass Transit, something that took her from Edgar County. She lived in Kansas and would take her from Edgar County to Charleston, where then she could get on Dial-A-Ride and then get to campus in Mattoon, which was really kind of cool because when you consider living in Kansas, a small rural community in Edgar County, and you need to get to Lakeland, I thought that was kind of cool that she was able to link it and make it work.
And I thought, isn't that what Champaign's MTDL is? Champaign's Mass Transit? So I didn't realize they go to Kansas.
Yeah, there was something in Edgar County,
I didn't know.
but I believe it was MTDL that she had taken.
All right, I saw something pop up in the chat. Let me see.
I think we also could look at programming that.
Crawford County has rides, mass transit. Awesome,
Mass
thank you.
To help people get licensed. You know, we really need to look at those programs, you know, for students who didn't have access to driver's education, or students or people who came from the city that never had a need to have a driver's. We have that happen all the time. And even the larger immigrant population that we have, transportation is a huge issue for, I mean, employers are taking their employees to and from, and there's been a lot of conversation at several employers that I visited at recently asking for adult driver's ed, basically. Well, I know that doesn't necessarily, isn't a transportation service in getting somebody back and forth, but it wouldn't allow them to get licensed to get themselves back and forth because they're already working. They just don't have a way to get there and get home.
And if we're really assessing the bus services or this mass transportation, that's not really quite mass transportation that we have in this area. A lot of times it runs on schedules, and those schedules are not the train schedule that we have from our, Polar Express days, where we think the conductor's gonna leave right on the dot and we're gonna show up right in time for work. Like, no, I read, was it Dial a Rides? I was reading that be ready 45 minutes before your scheduled time, and just know that we might be up to 30 minutes late to pick you up.
Yeah, you can't do
So
that.
that's another barrier. Yes, it's an attempt to relieve a barrier, but there's another barrier within itself when it comes to work schedules.
Yeah, there's certain programs our students are in, especially if it's Cosmo that runs starting at 8 and goes through 4. They cannot utilize Dial a Ride and ensure they'll be there for the start of an 8 o'clock class.
So mass transit's not a one-stop solution. Not to use that term in a funny way. But yeah, what else? If we do have anything out there that is for repairing vehicles, repairing credit, even so you can purchase a vehicle, getting the driver's license, ride sharing, those kinds of services. So Rodney says that Rides Mass Transit also covers a lot of IECC areas, which is awesome. All right. So then here's a fun one that I started thinking about is what additional services do we need? Like, we do have really great career services, getting people into training, making sure they know how to do interviews, that they have a good resume. But and we're talking about how do we get them to work on time, reliably. But there's still so much they have to do before that point to be ready for work, right? So we've already talked about childcare, housing. What about like physical exams, work clothing? Do we have services in the area that help out with those types of things if they need to do like a drug test before they can get a job? And if that's I don't know if jobs require you to do that on your own, or if they all offer them.
Standing Stones Community Center in Charleston offers 5 free clothing items per person in your household per month, and you don't have to show proof of income. Often they do have professional clothing that's available.
Effingham just did that clothing drive in the fall for work clothes, and I know we have the closet at work on campus. I don't know that there's any healthcare providers, but most of the time I know so our CDL students are required to take a DOT physical, and that's at their own personal cost. But if an employer is hiring you and requires a physical as a condition of the hiring, then they're responsible for that cost. But that is a barrier for some of our students, that there's nobody that will provide that.
Do we have any other ideas, other services that maybe are already here that do help people get prepared to go to work, or a gap that we're seeing? Sharmila, I did see your link for the transportation information. I will pull from that as well. Some of the organizations that were listed in our current plan are Catholic Charities, Goodwill, Salvation Army, then of course IRBA, CEFS, and DCFW. I think we can definitely very easily pull their information and add those services. Because a lot of them, if not all of them, would be kind of like that pre-ready for work services. Are there any other organizations, we've talked about Standing Stone, other organizations that have services in the area that are just helping to prepare people before they can get ready to go to work? Do you have any really great partnerships with certain social services or supportive service organizations? United Way, thank you, Sharmila. Does anyone ever partner with like WIC offices or Department of Health? Or ever referred people there?
I've referred people. And now we have a student support navigator who helps them connect to other community resources. I know we've had conversations with students about community resources and having a list that one of my colleagues put together dependent on the county that the student lives in.
I like it, and that also triggered me, the community navigators that I'm pretty sure Charleston Library has one. I don't know if they share with Mattoon, it's the same person, or if they have two.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of the libraries in the area have community navigators. Does anyone know of a local library that definitely, besides Charleston or Mattoon, has community navigators on staff now?
I didn't know if you said this, does the Effingham Library have one or one that's there at least a portion of the time?
I didn't say that, so if they do, local libraries are big, I think, are excellent resources that often get overlooked. And me personally, now knowing and hearing about the community navigators being based out of those libraries just shines a light of how many different services and resources are available at local libraries. So I would like to include them in our plan as supportive service capacity. All right. Let's go ahead and go on. This would be the part where I tell you, we worked through 7 goals of a service integration self-assessment amongst the core partners. We did get through 3 of the 7 goals. So what my announcement will be on this slide now is be on the lookout. We may need some additional specific input as we work through those particular goals, and those goals are kind of like already set for us. So not so much on deciding what the goals are, but how to reach them or how to measure. So just be on the lookout that there may be a request for some more specific information, especially for our business service teams or our core or title partners who serve individuals. But more to come on that, just be on the lookout. So then the last part of chapter 2, the last question is describe how workforce equity lens is or will be incorporated into the regional service integration strategies, including the job seekers and employers. And I think that just goes back really to what we do on the daily is equity. We use that equity lens to look at individual cases and what they need to be successful. So we, as a region, I think need to dive deeper into who's not being served, and then creating a plan to strategically market or do strategic outreach to those populations that we realize are not using our services. And maybe that's especially coming from the business service standpoint, smaller businesses, while we would love to do so much to support them, it's often harder for them to utilize our services because they're working, they're manning the till, they're on the floor doing the job. It's hard for them to take an hour out of their day to talk to 3 different business service representatives from different agencies and try to piece together a plan that's going to help them. So looking into that and how we can streamline that and we, again, meet them where they are to help them. In our current plan, I feel like we do a pretty decent job of saying that. Yeah, and we have some actual strategies, which I would encourage you to take a look at if you have not already, and send me any feedback you have. But we talk about surveying Head Start parents. We talk about contacting local employers with Spanish-speaking populations. So we've been doing that, it sounds like, around that region. Apprenticeships. Translations and case management style of assessing. Did we get a new chat pop up or something? So, all right, yay. So we're still in January, all month long. We're working together as a team to go through each of these chapters. So now we've done 3 chapters, 1, 2, and 3. Once we get chapters 4, 5, and 6, and like, spoiler alert, 6 is really just kind of us saying this is the stuff we do as the board, and here's all the compliance things that we did. So 6 is not a big lift for you guys at all. We get everything all together in a nice, pretty report format, and then we post it for public comment by February 14th, where it has to be out 30 days for public comment. By March 14th, that 30 days will be up, pending any public input. We then submit that plan to the Local Workforce Innovation Board on March 18th for their approval. Once that is approved, we have to submit to the governor's office through the Department of Commerce by March 31st. Then they review our plan, they ask questions, tell us to change some things. And once we get all of it neat, tidy, have a pretty bow on it, it becomes effective July 1st, 2024. So we are almost there. Thank you so much. Our next meeting is next Wednesday, the 17th, same time, 1 to 3, but different place. We will be meeting at the Cluthy Center, not at SEF's, Cluthy Center. Please register if you're planning to attend in person, so I can make sure there's enough cookies for you. Since, you know, y'all, if you join remotely, don't get to have the ones this time. I'll get some for you if you register. Let me know that you're going to be there in person. There will be signs as well, so you'll know what room to meet us in. I think it's room 105. And then we will meet again on the 24th, 1 to 3 p.m. back at CEFS. And then we will meet possibly that last time, depending, either we'll need to catch up, we'll need to look at anything we haven't completed by then, or look at a almost final draft. So keep that date penciled in, please. We're almost there, we're almost done. So if you're looking at the recording, pause now so you can scan that Survey Monkey. This is a different Survey Monkey survey. This one is the registration, just to let me know, head count, how many people will be in person. I think you both did, yes. So again, just to remind you, regional plan resources are on lwa23.net/regional-plan. You'll find our current plan, you'll find the regional guide, the regional planning guide that I keep referring to. You'll see the map that's there, the data packet, additional data. You'll see a draft of the state plan, and I think I put up links to the registration Survey Monkey and a link to the Chapter 3 Vision Goals Survey Monkey. So all your resources at your fingertips right there, lwa23.net/regional-plan. So, oh, look at that. We got 10 minutes.
Look at you.
And we have time for discussion, what questions, what other ideas. Oh, and because we're grant funded, I have to say this, we're part of the Illinois WorkNet Center, proud partner of the American Job Center Network. What other questions or discussions do you have? Okay. So
Take it off. Were you going to action
items, yeah. So action items is everyone who has not already, complete the Survey Monkey feedback form for the goals. And that is, that link is, you've gotten it via email, I'm sure, and it's also on our website. I'm not going to try to say it now because I'll mess it up. Action items. What have I promised that I was going to do?
Change some of the opportunity, some of
Yes.
the threats to challenges.
We will take your input and we will reorganize that strengths versus weakness into a more SWOT analysis.
Oh, yeah. Michael needs the QR code.
The QR code for the registration link.
Mhm.
Registration. Bam. There you go.
And you were gonna add identify, was that before?
I think we're just gonna end up rewording some of the goals based on input, so all of the input from today's discussion and from the Survey Monkey will be used, and you will see what that input is once it's all organized nice and pretty. So yes, I'm sure I will change wording, but I'm not gonna write down each of the things I'm gonna change. That's already in the notes, but more just like action items, things we need to do to be prepared for next time. Okay, so then I would say until you hear, oh, second action item, be on the lookout for specific input requests regarding service integration self-assessment. That's what it was, all right, which might not come, it'll be a surprise. It'll be a sweet little package for you. To get an email with hey, what are you doing for this? Or what do you think of X, Y, Z? So be on the lookout for additional input requests regarding the service integration self-assessment.
Jamie, I will say we got through sections 1 or goals 1 to 3 yesterday. We are meeting by Zoom tomorrow afternoon to start on goal number 4. When we get farther into the goals, I think 5, 6, and 7, that's where I think some of the questions may come up for other people outside or other titles, other non-title partners. So I do anticipate there'll probably be some questions once we get into some of those further goals.
I wanted them to be surprised and to kind of think like, oh, yay. I was looking forward to this. I wasn't sure. Ooh. Likelihood, yes, there's gonna have some more info. That's what all of this is about. Look at all that info. But wait, there's more.
Because I had to print it. I didn't want to just look at it online. I had to still print it in paper.
I feel ya. Our next meeting, I'll go over all of the input from chapter 3 goals with you all to kind of let you know what I've finalized, what the outcomes have been from everyone's input. And then we'll get into chapter 4. So read our current plan, chapter 4 information, take a look at the regional plan guide, chapter 4. And just come ready with some thoughts and ideas. Next Wednesday at the Cluthy Center, 1 to 3. Let me know if you'll be there in person for snacks. Last chance for parting thoughts. Thank you so much for your contributions. Yes. Casey.
Hey, sorry. I was just wondering if maybe for the next meeting, we don't have to do it now, but the next one, could we like go around really quickly and say who you are and why you're even in this meeting? Because there's just several names that I'm like, who is that? So I just thought maybe we could do that.
That is valid. I like that idea. We'll put some people on the spot. I will work that into the agenda, which will be posted on our website as well. So be ready to make a little quick introduction of what your role is in the workforce system of the region. Love it. Thank you, Casey, for that. And thank you all for your time. Thank you for your contributions. Please, what we've discussed today, think on and marinate a little bit. This meeting will be posted on our YouTube, which there's a link to that from our regional planning page. And notes will be posted on our website as well. So check that out. Again, many thanks. I'll let you go back. Have a wonderful day. See you all around. Thank you.